adversarial relationship with the press on campus, which makes a lot of sense now the more I think about it. Basically, while we were expanding the paper when I arrived at SNC was like a photocopied, stapled 8x11. I mean, it was not pretty. And Tanya turned it into a 16-page, printed on newsprint, and distributed 5,000 copies within the local paper, which was awesome. Suddenly, like, these stories were actually making a difference in the community, and we were covering not just SNC, but the whole local community, all of North Tahoe really, and sometimes further. And the administration wasn't really used to that, and wasn't really used to the fact that, you know, the community members would be reading this paper, and it could have an effect on the school. And there were a few times when the administration actually wanted final approval on the publication. So before we were to print, you know, it would come across his desk, and he would say yes or no, or change this doesn't, you know, cast the school in a positive enough light, whatever. And Tanya was like furious about this, and she sort of imparted on me like why I should also be furious about this. And I was like, oh yeah, free press, you know, First Amendment. And so she put it in my hands to sort of lobby the administration and tell them the importance of having an independent, free press on campus. And I sat in some meetings with Tanya and the president that were like amazing and just really interesting. And we ended up getting the president to sign a free press agreement that we adapted from another private university who had a similar struggle. And it was great. We then, at a student journalism conference, one of the highest read college media blogs, so someone who just covers like what's going on in college papers around the country, he heard about this and became interested, and he interviewed Savannah Hoover and I about the challenges of reporting in a private school, because, you know, at a private university you don't have to have a free press. You know, it's not like a public university. So yeah, Tanya was just super influential. She really unfortunately passed away just last month, and her service was just at the church across the street, and she made such a huge impact on so many students here, and yeah, so Tanya, can you know?
Yeah, huge loss to our community. I'll piggyback on that because I'm the one who left you with the stapled pile of stapled copies. Yeah, the eagle's eye. So yes, I edited the newspaper as well for the first, I think I edited it for 2 years. And Tanya came my last year that I was editing it, and wow, she was definitely a step up from what we were used to, and I think I knew I loved journalism, but I knew I wanted to go into teaching. But regardless, she really, you know, she got you out of your comfort zone, she got you into interviews that maybe you weren't so comfortable with. I agree with that. She deserves a big shout out. As for other professors, because I majored in English, most of my classes were with June Saraceno, and she is somebody who I've maintained a great relationship with since graduating, and I think that that's so important with SNC, and I think it's so cool that so many different alumni have maintained these great relationships with their professors afterwards. She encouraged collaboration, discussion, and that's what I do in my regular classroom every day. That's what I kind of said before, but I think it's great when you can take something that you loved about your college atmosphere and apply it to what you're doing. So, yeah.
I guess I can maybe just add a little bit on the openness and the transparency that professors have in that relationship with the students, and oftentimes that relationship develops into a personal relationship. You know, and later on you actually get to, even if you're graduate from the college, you can still contact them and ask questions, and I just think that's, you know, to me personally, I'm Chinese American. You know, I grew up in China, so teachers, you know, have always than these, very, people that you don't really, you see in class, but you never really associate with them on a personal level. It just doesn't happen. And so for me, it was really refreshing. It was really, just really exciting to have that personal relationship. And later on, and as that develops and you can continue to make that impact, not just on your professional career, but also just personal growth. And because these are really outstanding people that are, sacrificing their time and effort to bring up the next generation. So I think it's very impressive.
I'd just add one last thing that I didn't quite touch on in my About Me, but I think it's worth noting here. I mentioned that kind of the community in Incline having a strong presence and a strong linkage to the college. I was also fortunate enough to do an internship with the Sierra Angels here in town, who's an angel investment group. This group was led and founded by Bob Goff, who has just lent more of his time than I can even tell you to the students here of the college in a very genuine and personal way. So there are both the direct programs within the college, but then there's just a very strong linkage to this community here that's just got such great people.
Maybe I'll just on that point. Maybe I'll just add one more thing because I think it's worth mentioning. So right now I'm working in the humanitarian sector, but my very first trip working in Ethiopia in a humanitarian context was at the Missionary of Charity of Mother Teresa and Sisters, and that internship was through Mary Llewellyn, who teaches here at SNC. So that trip, the 3 months that I was there, really inspired me to continue on that path. And so I just want to give a shout out to Mary. Yes, Mary's watching.
Thank you. Yes. So flipping that on its side, right? One of the things that we like to say here at SNC is this is the time and the space for you to fail. A lot of our students, we create an environment where it's okay for them to fail, and I always tell my students, I would much rather you fail now when it's a grade, rather than when you get to the real world and that's your job on the line and you could be fired. Okay, so if you guys could talk a little bit about a time where you feel like you failed, what you did to pick yourself up, and move on.
Mics are down.
I think we need to start down at the other end.
Well, I mentioned it earlier, but I was something that attracted me to SNC to begin with was this program where I don't know if this is still true, but it's one of 2 4-year ski business resort management, and I just thought that was so cool. And I grew up in Truckee. I grew up working at ski resorts, and I think I saw my departure from that field as like a huge failure. I made myself feel better by telling myself that Vail owns everything anyways. It's not working in this industry 40 years ago would have been cool, and they were like ma and pa owned, but no, I was quite sad to leave that major, but a number of classes just sort of convinced me that it wasn't right for me, and I think it's a testament to the college that I had opportunities like flying at me from every direction. I think some professors who I developed relationships with could see that I was like kind of down in the dumps at that point, and really were like going out of their way to be like, well, you should try this, or you should try this, or here, we know you're interested in English and writing. I was thinking about actually June at one point. I had a long conversation with her about possibly doing an English major. I took travel writing classes, and they were great. So yeah, SNC really helped me out. And I think this happens to, I think any freshman that goes into college and knows exactly what they want to do is like, I'm sorry, but it rarely works that way. I'm always skeptical when it's like, my little brother, he's 5 years younger than me, and he goes into freshman year and he's like, I want to do astrophysics. And like now he's like a poetry major. So yeah, I think it's great that the school can offer people that do maybe have that realization of, oh, I don't want to do what I thought I wanted to do.
So
Yeah, I guess with me, my biggest point of failure is I was coming into school feeling like a failure. I was 26 years old, and I was on the 10-year program to graduate with my bachelor's degree. And I decided that my last year I was just going to finish it. So I took 26 units one semester, and I think 27 units the next semester, which is suicidal. And me too, is I've worked throughout my entire collegiate career 40 hours a week. And so for me, we had in the business department, you had a business plan competition at the end of the year. And we worked through it through our entire year for this competition. And I thought that I had this great idea of aquaponics, and I was going to save the world and grow food at 50% less water and produce 30% more, and how could this fail? And then I looked into the business, and I was like, whoa, there's a lot of moving parts about this. And soon become overwhelmed by the amount of work that I had to do with my business plan, and then with my other classes at the same time. And throughout the course of the year, I basically made a business plan and turned it in that was one of those where you stayed up all night to do it. And I really believed in the idea of the aquaponics plan. But then I realized I turned in financials, which are the most important part of the business plan, that essentially didn't make sense. And although this was a great idea, idealistically, the reality was I gave a bad business plan. And I didn't end up making it to the Governor's Cup. And that was always a regret that I had, was the fact that I felt that if I would have worked hard enough, that I could have gotten my business plan to the point where I could have gotten to the Governor's Cup. And so it was actually during that failure that both Kendra and Rick gave me some really solid advice as to why my plan didn't work, and has allowed me now to, in my day-to-day job as an event manager, is I look at every single event as a mini business plan. And I have to have financials that make sense. I have to have marketing and management that have to make sense. And I have to have an operational plan that it makes sense. And like she said, is I failed in school. And so when I left, now every single one of my events, I can prove on paper whether or not it's going to make money. And we can take risks at a resort because I can do that, and I can make that proof. And so it was something that failure allowed me to succeed. And then even on top of that, I was struggling even getting my work done in school. And I was also a professional photographer at the time. And I was telling Rick, hey, I have to go and do the shoot. I don't have enough time to be able to get this case study done in time. I'm gonna fail this, essentially, because I just can't do it. I can't do the reading, I can't keep up with it, but I gotta be honest with you and tell you I can't do it. He's like, okay, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm a photographer, I have this photo shoot, I need to, make sure that it gets done, and I have all these different elements. So he's like, okay, that's your new case study. I want you to do a case study of the job that you're doing, and I want you to give me a report on it. And I'm going to give you a grade on that, instead of, 2 chapters in a book to read. And just that, in and of itself, allowing me to change the way that my schooling was going, to modify my lifestyle, and to not sacrifice my education, but really integrate my education into what I was doing, really kind of turned the page for me. So from the business plan failing to being shown by Rick that, hey, let's